Hey guys, welcome back. So today we're going to talk about cold wax painting, which I've recently started, so I'm not necessarily a pro on it, but I do like to explore and try things, and I like to share that with you. So I'm going to show you first all of the supplies that I use and the mediums, and give you more of an idea of how I use them, what that looks like in my studio, and give you the breakdown before we go into the video. And you can see me working with the cold wax. So first I want to tell you what substrate I use. And this is a panel board, hard wooden board. These are one of my pieces. You know, sometimes they're called cradle board. You can call them encaustic board, which is another form of wax painting that I also do. So these are on wood. The reason I like to work on this surface is because I feel like you can layer better. You can scrape into the pieces. You can pull back. You can move things around. Also, it looks different and you don't see the texture of the canvas and stuff. So I really like to work on these boards. Then the real reason I like to work on these is they travel well. So I travel and do a lot of art shows. And when you travel with canvas, you run the risk of breaking your canvas or popping holes through. So with this surface, you don't have that problem. And just all in all, it's a great surface to work on. I have a person locally that makes them. A lot of people make their own, but you can also definitely buy them on Amazon, Dick Blick, Jerry's Artorama, all of those places. So that's the surface that we use. And then as far as the medium itself, the cold wax medium, there's two major brands that you can buy from. These are the two brands here. I'll link all of this in the show notes below and stuff. So basically, I don't see any difference in them. I've used both. I got both to try to see if one worked better for me or not, but honestly, I think they're both good. So I would say either of these are good. I'm about to order a huge container. This comes in like a larger paint container because I use so much of it. So these are the two of those. And then oil paints. There are so many oil paints. These are the brands that I've been using lately. I just find that they work well. I did just get in clearance, this brand, which is like the brand you can buy at Michael's and different places. What I would say about it is it's thinner, or a little more watery, which when you're thinking about cold wax painting, you want it to be kind of thick and dense. So maybe this doesn't work quite as well, but whatever. I mean, you can make anything work well if you try and work hard enough. I always believe that too. I don't believe that spending the most money on your supplies is the only way to get the outcomes that you want. I do think that there are times where getting the better product helps you. But guys, if you are just exploring and trying things, do not spend a fortune on supplies. Like, we have fooled ourselves into believing that spending so much money on supplies makes for better art. And the reality is, if you can create great art if you just take the time and the effort into doing it. So don't spend all of your money on art supplies. That's just my spiel, okay? And then as far as things to paint with, I will link these as well. Someone else showed me these. I think they're so great. They're basically just like cake batter, you know, wiping bowls. But this brand specifically, they're firm where they need to be firm, but they're also not too stiff. I bought a bunch of different ones because I like to maybe not spend a lot, but spend a lot on otherwise. I tried these two just from like Hobby Lobby or something, and they're fine, but this one's like a little too firm. And so when you're trying to drag it, it doesn't really bend the way you want to bend. So this is that other brand, the red. These two come in a pack together, and these work really well. But I want to show you how I clean them. Any oil-based paint, obviously you can use paint thinner or whatever. This is Gamisol. It's a mineral-based, doesn't smell, solvent. And so I just wipe my brush onto them after I've dipped it, and you can just wipe them off. And they just come clean, right? And you can use them again and make them all messy all over again. So this one definitely needs to be cleaned. I'll show you. Like I said, I just dip my brush into my little jar of Gamisol that I have here. And then this has been on for a longer time. So sometimes you have to scrub a little, but it starts to come off. And if you have trouble, or you can even like scrape, you know. So anyway, these are the tools I use to put on, but I also have this collection of palette knives. And I like to work in palette knives in general, no matter what medium I'm using. I love painting with palette knives. It gives you just so much more depth, and you can move the paint differently, and you can get into little edges and corners, and you can put thicker layers, and then you can always go back with brushes and smooth them out. So I just think painting with palette knives is just a great way to create different textures and a different look. So anyway, those are the supplies I paint with. I'm gonna show you my palette. At the beginning of this video that we're about to move into of my painting, I set up my palette in front of the camera, and you can see me mixing my white paint. And so I'll just, I'll let you see it that way, because to move it over or whatever, but you can see my palette then, and I'll talk a little bit about how I set up my palette and how I change my palette. I also cover my palette with plastic at night. It stays because it's oil paint. So if you cover it with plastic, it'll last for several days, so you can make it work that way. But I think that's it about supplies. So we'll get into the video. I hope you like this video. It's different from the others I've been creating in that we're using cold wax. So there'll be maybe more times of me painting and you watching. It's not as much to explain in some of those. Also, I started by having my canvas up on my easel here, mostly so that I could show you where I'm starting. But what I've found that is when I work with cold wax, it definitely is easier to lay it flat. At the time, I just didn't have the surface set up for you. So later in the video, you see I transfer over to having the surface flat, so you can see. Okay, so let's get started. Okay guys, welcome to me painting on my easel. So my panel board is up on my easel. You can see I kind of had started doing a few things before I videoed, but really not a whole lot. Just put some basic color down in the background. I wrote some words. But here I'm gonna start by laying down some book pages. So a lot of times I put book pages, I put sewing pattern paper or hymnal pages into my work. I like the texture it creates. Sometimes you can still see it in the background. Sometimes I cover it up completely, but either way, it really does create a really cool surface in the background. So that's how I start a lot of my pieces, actually, is by adding some paper and texture into the pieces. So when you're looking here, you can really see my overall layout. That little jar there has just regular Elmer's glue with water. I like it to be thinned out so that I can really get a good surface with it. A thinner glue will help you smooth it and get some of the bumps and stuff out. So that's what I like to use. And I just use my basic paintbrush, and I'll kind of go back in and pieces that come up. Occasionally I will go over it with a palette knife to really smooth it in. I'm laughing at the video because you can see I'm talking to someone who's in the studio with me. I like to work in my studio with people there occasionally. Sometimes I like to work in solitude, but I find that when someone's in my studio with me and I'm talking and working, it becomes almost methodical and I'm just creating, not really thinking at all about the piece. So that's something fun if you kind of get stuck on your work and you don't know, you kind of get too involved and you start questioning, is have a friend just come and sit with you and visit while you work. I think that really helps me to move through my work and not be thinking, just be doing. And a lot of times we need that because I feel like your body knows what you want to create, but your brain gets in the way and you start questioning things. So that's something to try. So here in the video, I am just using my heat gun to dry that glue. I like to get it dry. Definitely when you're working with cold wax, your background needs to be dry. You don't want to put cold wax on top of glue or anything that's wet back there. So I like to make a lot of marks into my pieces. I'm using my charcoal pencils here to just sometimes write words, but also just make lines and marks in the background. It's funny because at the end of this painting, you'll see that this is all completely covered. But like, I know it's there, and it's therapeutic to start that way and to like put lines and marks down when you, a lot of times people are like, oh, blank canvas, what do I do? Well, just don't make it blank anymore. Just cover it with stuff and you'll start to layer and cover over it. But it does leave great marks in the background, and sometimes you can see them shining through. And so, I challenge you to just like scribble onto your work, especially if you feel nervous about a blank canvas. Anyway, I'm going to let you guys see me work here for a while. You'll see that I start to put some of the cold wax down with my palette knife and move it around with those little baking pads that I showed you earlier. So I'm going to just let you watch for a little bit. Okay, so in that video, I was at 5 times speed, as you could probably tell. So here I'm back to regular speed, and I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about the way I work on these paintings. You'll see throughout that I am putting cold wax on, but I'm also pulling some of it back. So I go in, I love the layered effect. So you add, then you pull back, you add, you pull back. Something about that really creates such depth in your work. And I also want to tell you that I sometimes mix on my palette or on the board. So I'll collect and gather with that little spatula tool, multiple colors, and then I'll blend them. I'll let them blend on the board, or sometimes I'll like mix them on the palette. You can see my palette there. I actually have a garbage bag covering it right now because that was the only plastic I had. You'll see here I'm pulling back. So I'm pulling some of that blue away so I can get that red and orange color that's under. It's just another technique that I think is really cool, and that cold wax affords you the ability to do and to be able to have different layers and depths. See how I'm pulling back there. There's a picture that inspired this painting, and a lot of times people ask me what inspires my work. And sometimes it's just deep inside my brain, and it's the colors I love. And especially with abstract work, you often are just inspired by flowers or color combinations that you love, and then I put them into a composition that I love. But this specific piece does have a picture. I was on a walk out, I live out in the country, and I have like the very best sunsets out here. And so I'll try to see if I can add a picture of that for you. Okay, it's like magic. I was able to add this picture in, and that is the picture that I use as inspiration for this piece. As most of you know, if you just started watching my channel, I'm very new to YouTube. And so I'm learning how to do all of this video editing and learning what works and what doesn't work. I would love your opinion in the comments. Tell me the things you love. Tell me the things I need to get better at. Sometimes you guys tell me things and I already know that I am floundering and failing in that way. But it is also good to just like hear other people's opinions and get their ideas too. So this video is almost over, and you'll see that right after this, I transfer my panel board to a flat surface. I let my painting dry for a whole day before moving to the second overlay. And when you're using cold wax, you really do have to let that happen if you want to put layers that don't move for you. So you'll see whenever I lay down how it changed. Okay, so now we're in flat mode. This is my palette that I told you I would show you how to mix the cold wax with the paint. So right up in the middle, I'm out of white paint, which tends to happen often. So I'm putting a lot of white paint. Remember, you can always cover your palette. It lasts a few days if you really cover it tight with a piece of plastic. So you put equal parts cold wax and equal parts oil paint. So I just put a big blob of white paint there. And you'll see now I'll come back and scrape through the jar that's almost empty and put equal parts of the cold wax. I love this part. It is so fun to mix the paint. I feel like when I'm using one of my palette knives that is a little more flimsy, like it's thinner so it bends more. And I think that's an easier way to mix your paint. It helps to like move it around. If you use a firmer or stiffer palette knife, it doesn't blend as good. So this one's a little bendy and it allows me to really mix all of the cold wax medium in with the paint. You can see I'm doing that here. And then I do this weird thing where I scrape one palette knife onto another to get all the residue off. The colors that I have around, I start mixing those as I go. I usually use these standard blue and yellow and green. And then the reds and pinks I alter, and then I also blend those out with white to get the exact color mixing that I love. I love mixing color. Do you see now I'm putting a little bit of this yellow in with the white, and I'll also grab some pink, and that creates like kind of a creamy color for me. So I just love blending paint in general. It's fun. It's a whole part of the process that's equally as fun as painting the painting sometimes. So this is just me mixing, and then we'll get to working. So we're coming to the end, and I go in, I add a few little extra marks and lines. I like to scrape in. I like the way it looks to have these little random lines. Here I'm going back with my foil to add a little gold. I know you've seen me use my foil pen. I'm using it here, but you can also scrape into this foil when the cold wax is a little wet. I'm moving things around because I can't reach. Anyway, I use this foil quilling pin with the foil to add my signature and add a few final touches. I like the way the gold adds. A lot of times you can't see some of these details unless you're in person. So if you ever want to see my stuff in person, reach out to me. I'd love to set up a time for you to come see. But here's me adding little bits here. I toned down some of those bold, bright colors that we started with. I like to have a little more of a subtle look, but you need those colors under. So okay, so ta-da, final piece right here, all finished up. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was a good video for you, that you learned a little more about cold wax, that you kind of understand the technique a little more, and I don't know, that you saw something that brought some support to what you're doing, or inspired you in some way to create something different. So guys, if you like these videos and you want to see more of them, subscribe and follow and share and comment. Tell me all the things. Tell me about the things you're doing. I'd love to hear more about it. I'd love to see some of your work too. This has been really fun for me. It's fun to put my work out there and to kind of explain it. You don't get to always do that as much. So it's neat to have other people follow you and see the things you're doing. So if you like it, come back for more, and I'll see you soon. Go be great.